Hi, folks. Welcome to another edition of Customer Story. And today, we have Catherine from RUNX1, an amazing organization with a very inspiring mission. Right, their mission reads, "Join us on our journey to end blood cancer." Right, that's their mission. Right, how much more inspiring can it get? So, welcome, Catherine. Yeah.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Okay, great. Okay, so. Catherine, this is, in fact, one of the truly inspiring missions that I've come across, and it's definitely a bit personal for me. I do have, as I was saying a bit before, one of my relatives who succumbed to, blood cancer or leukemia, quite some time back. So it's such an admirable mission that you have, right? Can you tell us a little bit about the background of RUNX1, right, as well as how this mission came to shape and the founding story of your organization?
Sure, absolutely. So the RUNX1 Research Program is a small patient-founded nonprofit. And so our co-founders, Monica and Tim Babbage, Tim has the disease, which is called RUNX1 familial platelet disorder. It's a hereditary blood disorder that makes an individual 30 times more likely to develop blood cancer in their lifetime. And so he has this in his family. It's relatively new. They didn't discover this disease until around 1999. And his family was one of the first who participated in some of the research and discovery of this disease. So they started RRP as a way to see if they could find more people. They knew that it couldn't just be their family. And so they started with just their family. And now we're over 380 patients that we have on board now. So we focus on raising awareness around the disease. We also fund innovative research on it. So we have grants that we co-fund with different organizations, like-minded mission, to help researchers who study RUNX1 FPD continue pushing forward on cancer prevention research. And then we also offer a supportive community for those impacted by the disease. So the families that we found, and we just continue to look for patients and families, people who have certain symptoms that they just don't understand. Doctors have never been able to quite figure out for them. And so there's a special genetic test that they take to find out if they have this disease. And like I said, it's hereditary. It's passed down from generation to generation. There is a 50-50 chance that someone will pass this on to their children. So we're trying to find a way, instead of, it would be wonderful if we found a cure for blood cancer, but knowing that it's more realistic if doctors can find just a prevention and treatments, because currently there is no prevention for blood cancer for RUNX1 FPD patients, or really treatments besides a full bone marrow replacement.
Wow. Okay. That's quite inspiring and quite educational, right? This was the first time I really heard about this specific, disease. And
Yeah.
it's quite inspiring to know that, you are doing this, and you've already probably assembled a group of about 380 patients. And I'm sure, the world needs to hear this message out there. Right.
Well, and the interesting thing about our patients, the unique thing is that clinicians can monitor them and watch if they develop blood cancer. So they can see blood cancer develop in real time. And that's part of the important part of the work we do, and that they can watch this if it's going to happen. It doesn't always happen. It's not 100%, but if it's going to happen, and then that helps researchers see where they might be able to cut that pathway off that could apply to other cancers as well, knowing how that mystery that we're still trying to solve of how and why does cancer just suddenly happen.
Okay, awesome. And I also saw in your website that you are actually working with multiple sets of stakeholders, right? Obviously you're working with patients, right? But I'm also seeing that you're working with researchers, clinicians, and probably people who provide funding as well, right? So how does that really work out, right? How do you really prioritize, and how do you, ensure, there's an absolute collaboration, for this very noble cause? How does that happen?
We are a very small but mighty team of 3 people. So we have what we call departments, 2 departments. Dr. Katrine Erickson is our executive director, and she oversees the scientific side of what's going on. So the research funding, as well as, what research is out there, works with scientists. That's her background. And then we have Dr. Amanda Egan, and she is on the side of the patient engagement and clinical programs. And so she works with the clinicians asking them to refer their patients to us, trying to find clinicians and educate them, make them more aware about RUNX1 FPD, as well as I said, the patients that we support in our community that we have and their families. So we have those two departments, and then I support both of those. So anything that has to do with the website, email marketing, writing things, blog, social media, all of that. That's my job, and I love it. But it's a lot of hats to wear. You have to be very organized. And it's important every year when we do our strategic planning that we define our objectives to make sure that we are also coming up with a feasible plan for the three of us, and that we're pushing things forward and we're staying on track. But at the same time, we're aware of what we're all doing and what needs to be done and when it needs to be done. So it's a challenge. There's a lot, especially because it's a rare disease and there's 7,000 plus rare diseases. So trying to get yours in the spotlight is just a challenge in itself.
Right. Great. Thanks. And OKRs were actually born in Silicon Valley, right? And it's been quite widely adopted by the tech industry and now a little more broadly into the for-profit world, right? Now, how do you see OKRs, relevant for a charity and not-for-profit organization like yours?
I'm sorry, repeat that?
How do you see OKRs relevant for a not-for-profit organization like RUNX1?
Well, we've always used OKRs at RRP. The three of us from past jobs had exposure to writing a strategic plan with your objectives, and so that's something. But we previously organized them using spreadsheet trackers and Word documents, and this approach made it difficult to track progress and see how it all rolled up into the overall OKRs by the end of the year. And as a nonprofit, it's very important for all of our stakeholders to see exactly what we're doing and being transparent about here's where, especially for funders, here's where your dollars are going, and here's where the work that we've accomplished over the year, and here's where we're going to go forward with it. So and also for our co-founders, because they live in London, and so we have a monthly presentation with them where we show them here's where we are, here are the challenges that we've run into, here's how we've pivoted, here's something that's probably not going to get done this year because we figured out by laying the OKRs out that we need to do this first before we can get to that. So it's helped us as a small nonprofit remain transparent and moving forward and accountable for the things that we promised to our stakeholders.
Great, awesome. Now, we will probably come back, to the how, why OKRs and how you really decided on OKRs, right, for RUNX1. But before that, since you started this topic of spreadsheet, right? So how long were you, using OKRs with a spreadsheet, and what were the real challenges of using OKRs, using spreadsheets for OKRs?
Oh my gosh, what a mess. Okay. It was just so hard for everyone to see where they were supposed to put their updates, and then updates would get really long. And so then we would have to do, okay, we're going to make it quarterly spreadsheets. So that way we're not making, so much in one spreadsheet, but then you can't remember what you did last quarter. So everybody has to go back and look at that. And why did we make this decision? Oh yeah, there it is. Like, here's the notes for it. And so we started that. That was when I came on 3 years ago. We were doing that. And that has been my experience in the past too, is using spreadsheets to track your OKRs. And the more people you have on the team, the messier it gets, the more confusing it gets. And you can't really measure progress in a spreadsheet. I mean, you can see, we did this, this, and this, but there's no measurement that you can tell. There's no percentage. There's no way to track the actual numbers. And so you can put in those things, like, for example, social media. I had my own little section for social media, and I could say, here's how many followers that we had, here's the percentage of growth that we've seen, here's what we want to do. But it gets all jumbled up, and then things get erased. And so it's not a great way to put that together. But it was the best way we knew at the time to organize it. Right.
Okay, great. And you said you also present on a monthly basis, right, to the founders who are in London. And, with Profit.co, compared to, let's say, your spreadsheet time, right, how has that changed?
Oh my gosh. So it is wonderful. So one of our favorite things about Profit Co is that you can make a PowerPoint presentation. So just exporting that has saved us so much time. As a small team, we only have so much time. And as I said, we wear so many different hats, and our time is very structured because we have to make sure that we're getting everything done. And just to be able to go in every Friday, update the numbers, and then when it's time for our presentation, export the presentation so that we can show, what our progress is and give the presentation. Before, we were doing a presentation in a Word document. And so each of the departments would put the, relevant information underneath an OKR, and it got very long. The document was extremely long, and it took a lot of time. And there wasn't a reference for our co-founders of, well, what are all of the objectives that you have for the year? Even though you're only working on certain things right now, like it's a good refresher as well for them. So when we go in, we can show them, here's all of our objectives that we have for the year. Here are the ones that I'm going to cover today. Here's the growth that we have, so far. Here's where we project will be by the end of the year, that kind of thing. So it's been wonderful. It has streamlined that process so much.
That's amazing to hear, right? So you were using spreadsheets, and then you wanted to use a technology, right? How did you decide upon Profit.co?
Well, we had used a couple other platforms before, and they worked for me because they were very project management focused. So for me, that's what I do, is I have projects that I do for each department, and then I have all the tasks and everything. But on the level that Amanda and Katrine need to work on, which is more of a qualitative, it just didn't work. You could check off all the tasks that you've done. You can say, well, I did, 12 tasks this month, but this doesn't tell you what your progress is. This doesn't tell you how to measure this. And so we were looking around and trying to decide how we're going to do it. We were going to go back to using a spreadsheet again, just to, in the meantime, because it wasn't working. And I just happened to find Profit.co. And I found, if I could have just typed into the computer, I need a platform that will have qualitative and quantitative measurements that we can put our overall OKRs into, but then we can have our department OKRs that roll up into the overall OKRs, provide a presentation for our co-founders, and then see how our individual progress has rolled up by the end of the year. Then that was you guys. It was amazing. I'm like, this came out of nowhere. And so I remember I showed it to Dr. Erickson, and she's like, oh, how did you find that? I'm like, I don't know, but I'm so glad I did. We just were so excited that you guys existed. And we have had, everything else that we looked at was project management based focused. You guys are that. So I have that from my side of things. But the OKR part is so important. We have to be able to show that as well. So to be able to go in and assign tasks to each other, or mostly assign tasks to me and our communications intern, so that we can, start at the bottom and roll things up into our overall goal and mission, is amazing to watch. It's something that we've never found anywhere else, and we weren't going to get that in a spreadsheet.
Okay. That's awesome. Thanks. And I know you have a mission which is pretty long term, right? But at the same time, you also want to measure things on a periodical basis, right? So how do you plan your OKRs? Are they planned on a quarterly basis or annual basis? How do you go about the planning part?
Sure. So we do an annual strategic plan every year. We meet in person. We're a virtual office, but we meet in person and go over what happened the year before, and what we're looking toward. Most of our planning revolves around where the research is at right now and what makes the most sense, where to invest the dollars in our grants that makes the most sense going forward. And so, and that's kind of a multi-pronged approach that we have to, this kind of research, or, the different kinds of research that they're doing. And then from there, we do break it down into quarters. So we know that we're going to have this, many webinars in Q1, or, and they're going to be this focus, or, just depending on what we've already done and where we want to move forward with things, and who our grantees are. So if there's someone who can come in and has some discovery in their research that they can share with our community, we want to make sure that we're getting them in there and that they are a part of our plan going forward to give updates. So, you have to break it down into bite-sized pieces. So we enter in everything for the year, but we know that we will be revisiting this and, refocusing and redoing things as we go.
Awesome. And so you do an annual planning, you set your OKRs, and then how often do people check in? How does the execution happen? How often do you review the progress on OKRs? How does that happen?
Sure. So within the team ourselves, we have weekly meetings. So we look at everything that we're working on to make sure that, like at the most basic level, that projects are on track and on time and deadlines. And if they're not, then why and what do we need to do to fix that? Our monthly meeting with the co-founders is really where we visit and revisit the OKRs and make sure that we're on the right track and that what we were thinking and we wanted to do is exactly what we want to continue doing forward. For the most part, we do stick with that. And we are, working really hard to make sure that we're meeting the deadlines and that our objectives are continuously, growing and evolving as we go. But yeah, I would say that if we see that an OKR isn't quite what we thought it would be, that's okay. I mean, that's fine. And it's nice to have all of that in Profit Co because we can go in and revisit that, and everyone has their individual OKRs and then the company's OKRs right in front of them. So we can say, we're actually not going to get to this media relations OKR this year because we need to really focus on this research that's coming out and the new paper that's come out and promotion of that, as well as growing our patient community. So if we know that, we can put that on hold, but then it's still there. Nobody forgets about it because it's still in the program. So we can put it on hold, and then when the time is right, we can bring it back again and say, okay, now we have time to focus on this.
Great, awesome. So you have annual planning, you have weekly check-ins and reviews, and I know you have such a great purpose and an amazing mission, right? But still, everybody needs certain level of motivation and engagement, right, to probably re-energize ourselves, right? So how do you actually do that? Do you have little celebrations if you achieve milestones? How do you keep yourself motivated towards the purpose and cause? How do you do it?
Well, I think that part of that is all three of us are very type A personalities. And so we want to always achieve the best that we can. And we do have little celebrations, and the co-founders are really good about that as well. They'll send us little gifts for things that, they'll through the mail to make sure that we know how much we're appreciated. We have a team happy hour sometimes online on Zoom. So we make sure that we're connecting and not focused on work at all. We're making sure that we're talking about, what's going on in our lives, because we all really care about each other. We're very, very close. And we want to make sure that we aren't just always focused on work, that it's important to have that personal connection as well, not just, the professional connection. And I think that's something that a lot of businesses are finding now after COVID and how so many have gone virtual, is that it's important to keep doing that. You have to have that connection with your employees.
Sure, that's wonderful. Particularly because this is a marathon, and you definitely need these moments of celebration, right? Obviously, to re-energize and keep moving forward, right? So that's
Absolutely
great. And even though you have an annual plan, but do you do a quarterly reflection, or at what point do you? I know you have weekly review meetings, but do you have a deeper reflection that's on a quarterly basis? And do you modify your OKRs, right? Based on how things are, how does that happen actually?
Yes. So when we do the end of quarter meetings that are still part of the monthly meetings, then we will reflect on everything for that and revisit all of that. That's a longer meeting that we do. And we will, modify anything if it needs to be modified, for sure. I mean, like that. I think we also, because we're such a small team, we're often building the plane while we fly it. So we are constantly revisiting and being, this is not feasible for us, or, this isn't, we thought this was going to be an important thing to do, but it's really not as important as we thought. And this is more important. So it's just a constant visit of, your own objectives, and the company's overall goal never changes, obviously, and our mission never changes, but the way we approach it does. And yes, on a quarterly basis, we really dive deep into all of it, and all the objectives, instead of just showing which objectives that you're working on at the moment.
Sure, awesome. And Profit.co is a tool, right? Profit.co is a tool, and Profit.co, the people, the company. What has been your experience so far, actually, Catherine?
With the company itself, with the employees?
Yeah, with the employees, the company, and then maybe you can talk about the tool itself. Yeah, the
The tool
application
itself, yeah.
itself. Yeah.
So when we first started, we had one of your employees, and I'm so sorry, I cannot remember his name. He was wonderful. He took our strategic plan and showed us how to enter it into profit, because we're like, we're not sure how this works. And they were like, like the team that was helping us was like, no, we understand, this is new to you, so we're going to teach you how to do this and make sure you understand, and please ask questions along the way, and you can ask questions as many times as you want, and you can record our sessions so that way you can refer back to them. They were just so helpful and understood that we weren't 100% sure on how all of it worked, and we wanted to make sure we set it up correctly, because if you don't set it up correctly, then your presentation isn't going to work for you. Like, it isn't going to show like exactly what you need to do. And so there was a learning curve there. We really did have to learn it, but because I had found, I championed the implementation for our team, and so I went in and did trainings and learned how to input everything and how to connect it all and make sure that it was rolling up the way that we wanted it to. And Samita, our account manager, checks in with me all the time to make sure that I know what's going on. I also get emails constantly about new things that you guys are trying, or things that have been implemented and launched. And she always says, if you want to know how to use this, just let me know. We'll set up a time and I'll train you on it, and we'll see if it's something that is, helpful for you. There's so many things that you can do in Profit Co. We don't need all of them because we're so small, but what I really love about it is that it is adaptable to our team because we're so small in a nonprofit. There is still so much in there that we can use. I can see how it would be helpful for a huge company that had many departments and many employees, but it also scales to us. Like, we can use it and it helps us achieve our goals and keep track of what projects we're working on. So it's just been so helpful, and the team has showed us really how this can apply to any business.
That's awesome. And in terms of the impact of OKRs, right, on RUNX1, impact of OKRs, as well as using Profit.co as a tool, right? Have there been, what do you think would be the, let's say, the positive impact, right? Positive benefits, right, out of these two things?
Do you mean like how we use it, like daily basis?
Have you, the benefits that you have derived, right? The advantages you have derived.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Oh gosh, yeah. So we didn't have a way that we could measure our progress. I mean, there are certain things that you can, like I said, and you can go in and do more of the quantitative on your own and say, here's what we're doing. But qualitative wise, there isn't a way to say, here's where we are with the FDA on this clinical trial. And getting one of the first clinical trials for our disease in place was a huge accomplishment. But there isn't a way to connect that or track that in a spreadsheet or a Word doc. It's wonderful and actually very satisfying to go in and update everything in Profit Co. and to update your tracking so you can see how everything is rolling up into our overall mission. And so it's really kept us on track for that. And I think, let me think about this for a second. I mean, I think that we've seen improved alignment of goals across our organization. So we know that, we're all on the same page, and it's easy to write things down in a Google Doc for a strategic plan and then forget what you said you were going to do. And this is something that we use daily to go into and update and take notes. We can see each other's progress. We can say, we should probably do this, and then assign something to someone else. So it just keeps us all together. It's it just helps with the many hats that we all wear, keeping them all organized and in one place.
Sure. And those are pretty good benefits, right? Now, in terms of, let's say, if we look at some quantitative metrics, like let's say how much of time it saves, let's say, for example, in preparing presentations, or overall improving productivity. Have you thought about any metrics or amount of quantitative time savings, or any of the other metrics in which you have seen the impact?
Oh, absolutely. So I would say that our productivity has increased, obviously, and I mean, like, by at least 40%, because we're not scrambling to try and figure out where we are and what we're doing and who's doing what. We already know. That's all set up and taken care of. We don't have to worry about that. It's very straightforward. Here's what we're going to work on. Here's the deadline. here's what it's supporting, move on, track it. And so just having that in place has made it so much easier when you get online in the morning and you're, figuring out what you're going to work on for the week on a Monday morning, and seeing what's important, to have it's already laid out for you. You already know you need to start this now because this is going to affect this project, which affects this project, which affects this OKR, so you can see already like what it is that you need to be working on, and it keeps you focused and motivated and on task. And there's not a panic that you've forgotten something. That was something that we ran into before too. Tasks would, fall off the radar, or we'd be like, oh, weren't we going to do this? And, we'd forgotten because we have so many things going on. This just keeps it all in one place so that we don't ever have those problems anymore.
Okay, that's great. So that was a pretty interesting and, very motivating story, right? From Catherine about RUNX1's mission, and how, OKRs and Profit.co, have been really helpful for them, right, to go forward with their more, amazing mission, right? So thank you very much, Catherine, for really sharing your thoughts. We really wish you the best, right, for your organization and your mission, right? And
Thank you.
we look forward to hearing more, from you probably later. Okay, thank you.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for having me. It was wonderful to get a chance to tell you guys how much we appreciate what you do, because it helps us do what we're really trying to focus on. Our biggest goal is to prevent blood cancer, and it doesn't help if you're not organized and trying to make sure that all your projects are moving in the right direction. So this has been a godsend for us.